Hello, my name is Chelsea Koch. I am the Science Officer with the Decade Coordination Unit at the IOC UNESCO. And today I'm going to be providing you with a little more context about the Ocean Decade Framework and how we could potentially advance the Arctic Action Plan within it. As we enter the second year of the Ocean Decade, we're still in the process of building out the architecture to support this work. We have the Decade Coordination Unit, which is serving in this global coordination role, but we are starting to have other supporting structures that are emerging. Notably, we are in the process of reviewing 6 collaborative centers to join in on this. These will serve essentially as decentralized coordination units with either a regional or thematic mandate. And these are funded by the host institutions themselves. They will have a set of programs under their purview that either are working within the region or on the primary theme. And they'll be supporting catalyzing new decade actions, resource mobilization, engagement and outreach. So essentially performing the functions of the DCU. We have 6 currently under review. We have 2 regional, the Northeast Pacific and the Indian Ocean, and then we have 4 other thematic centers emerging. The Decade Action Framework is what you see here. We have the 3 decade objectives, which are the ways in which to address the 10-decade challenges to achieve the 7-decade outcomes. And the tangible initiatives that are happening with this are the decade actions. And these exist as either programs, projects, activities, or contributions. Programs are intended to be 5 to 10 years in duration. They are either global, one ocean basin focused. If they are global, they can have a narrower focus, but if they are regional or on one ocean basin, it's expected that it might have a broader thematic role. Then we have projects, which are shorter duration, so less than 5 years, and projects will be the ways in which you fill out the objectives of a program. These are programs and projects will be solicited through twice per year calls for decade actions, which will be opened on the 15th of April and the 15th of October each year. This will be the first year that we actually do this twice per year call. Activities and contributions, these occur on a rolling basis. Activities are one-off events, conferences, trainings, workshops, things like that. And contributions are financial or in-kind contributions to supporting the decade. So far, we've had 2 calls for decade actions. The first was a broad open call for any sort of program and project. And that resulted in 31 global programs and 81 projects and over 300 decade activities. But now, as are starting to have some things in place, the second call for decade actions was structured a little differently. So based on the output of the first call for decade actions, and we knew which sort of programs were emerging thematically, we tailored the second call to address 3 specific decade challenges. But also as part of this call, programs that were endorsed in the first call for decade actions were able to solicit projects specifically during this call. So the third call for decade actions will, so the second call closed at the end of January and the third call will open on the 15th of April. And again, there will be a 4th call later this year in October. These calls are open for 3 months. We also have national decade committees and regional task forces, which are very important in implementing this work. So far, we have 25 national decade committees that have been formally established. We are really striving to increase that number this year. The regional task forces, there are 7 of which the Arctic was one of, and these different task forces have obviously diverse mandates. But the aim here is that create stronger linkages between the national decade committees and the regional task forces, but also to transform the action plans that are emerging from these regional task force into operational programs. So of our regional initiatives, we have 2 that have already have an endorsed program, the Mediterranean and the Pacific Islands. And we have the Arctic and the Southern Ocean with action plans either already published or about to be. And then the others have all had regional kickoff conferences and action plans that will follow. So what is the role and benefit of becoming a program? So a regional program is able to solicit projects under future calls for decade actions. So as the initial call for decade actions, like I said, there was no programs already in place, so it was a wide open call. But now we need programs in place in order for projects to be submitted. And currently there is not an Arctic program that projects can be solicited to. So currently there's really not a great supporting framework for Arctic actions to be endorsed, although they still can be, but it would be ideal to have them funneled in through a specific program. So a program would be involved in the review of project submissions. So if a program is endorsed, they can decide to participate in a call for decade actions and whether they want to solicit projects or not. So that would be up to the program to decide. The benefits of doing this are that a program within the decade is highly visible. It's a shared global effort to advance transformative ocean science. So it's bringing together new partnerships and creating new collaborations. Also, resource mobilization within the decade framework occurs at the programmatic level. And the way that this happens is through we ask programs to participate in resource needs assessments every 6 months. These involve the costs of operating and managing the program itself, as well as the activities that need to occur within the program, research activities, outreach, engagement, things like that. So these resource needs assessments are used to inform gap analyses that then the decade coordination uses to share with their philanthropic partners and member states. Two primary mechanisms where this happens is the Foundations Dialogue and the Ocean Decade Alliance. The Foundations Dialogue is a global network of 25 and more private foundations, philanthropic foundations that are coming together to collaborate and think about how they can leverage resources and get new foundations involved in the initiatives of the Ocean Decade. They have different working groups that have emerged, regional and thematic. So they are looking at the Arctic. Then we also have the Ocean Decade Alliance. And this is a group of eminent members of society that are using their influence to leverage resources and help support resource mobilization. We also have institutional members playing in that role of member states, UN entities, private foundations, and private industry, both involved in that. So as I said, we have several regional examples of where programs have already emerged. The Mediterranean is one. They were endorsed under the first call for decade actions. So they are called the Science We Need for the Mediterranean Sea We Want, or SciMeet. This is a rather large program. They have over 20 organizations involved in their governance structure. And it involves over 27 countries. The Italian Oceanographic Commission is taking the lead on this. You can see the various diverse partners that are involved with this initiative. They have so far developed a 3-year operational plan and governance structure, but this was just only recently something that they've sorted out. This was after they already were endorsed. And then we have the Southern Ocean. This is operating as a task force currently that is coordinated by SCAR, Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research. They have well over 14 partners engaged in this at this point. They are planning to launch their action plan in just a few weeks. And they had submitted a placeholder program during the first call for decade action. So it has not yet been endorsed, but now they're able to take that action plan that they've developed and transition it into a program that can be then considered for endorsement. But again, this is another task force that's working with a very large and diverse set of partners. And then I just wanted to briefly mention one of the co-sponsored calls for decade actions that took place at the end of last year. And this was with ArcticNet. This is a call for proposals. It was partially funded by Fisheries and Ocean Canada, where they are seeking to identify projects advancing the priorities of the Canadian North, but these priorities are also aligned with those of the Ocean Decade and meeting the decade challenges. So in this co-sponsored call, projects that are selected for funding by ArcticNet will also be endorsed as decade actions. And so this was endorsed as a contribution. And so I just wanted to point it out because anything that's emerging from this program or from this call for proposals could potentially be something to factor into an Arctic regional program that emerges. And then I also wanted to mention the proposed Indigenous and local knowledge framework that we are bringing forward. The recognition of the Indigenous and local knowledge was really prominent in the implementation plan and in the endorsement criteria for endorsed decade actions. And so, but we're really looking to provide some sort of space to encourage these types of discussion and to advance this priority. So one approach that we're taking from this global perspective is to support an Ocean Decade Indigenous and local knowledge network. This will be a network of networks type approach. It's intended to provide guidance in building the trust, relationships, and connections needed to deliver co-designed and co-produced ocean science. This is something we are rolling out very slowly over the next year, and we're hoping to have the network itself be co-designed and meet the needs of those that would be using it. We've also proposed establishing a dedicated Indigenous and local knowledge community of practice, with the main objective here to coordinate endorsed decade actions that are engaging with Indigenous peoples and local communities, and to have some sort of accountability within the Ocean Decade for implementing and complying with the proposed Indigenous and local knowledge framework. I have a concept note that I'm happy to share, and definitely interested in feedback from the community on that initiative. So with that, I look forward to the discussions and hope that it's a productive meeting. Thank you.